Hey there, fellow creators, Ben here from Cinder Studios, and I've got a lot of stuff in the studio here. And it's been a really long time since I actually gave you guys a whole tour of everything. So that's what we're doing today. Stick around. So looking back to the last time I actually did a studio tour, the closest thing I could find was actually probably the tour of the back wall, where I talked about all the individual things on the back wall. Before that, it was 3 years ago when I did a moving blog, and prior to that, it was 3 years ago when I did sort of the concluding the moving blog, and I literally just placed everything in here. But prior to that, I was in the old studio, so this place actually hasn't gotten a big tour ever, more or less. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and do that. And this is not a quick jump cut, whatever kind of video. This is an off the tripod, handheld vlog type video. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to get this off of here to bring you guys here, which is what you guys see every week, the view from the tripod. But there's a lot more to this, and it's a little more of a space than you might realize, especially if you only catch some tutorials every now and then. So my tripod sits almost exclusively right here. This is actually a fairly cheaper tripod. I've had this for the better part of 15 years, 12 maybe? 12 sounds more right. So I know I had it going into college, so I think it's probably closer to 12. But it's sort of just the old reliable, and I've had it ever since, and it's great. This whole back side of the studio table, I've got this cutting board here that I don't use anywhere near enough. A lot of long-term projects that don't often get made or used or utilized, and things I'm just sitting in the back corner for a while, these tend to sit over here, as well as a can of air, because I don't have anywhere else to put it right now. Coming in towards the back, I'm going to move the tripod back here. I just kind of put other random stuff back here, long-term projects. All of these envelopes have cut up little squares of watercolor paper in them, divided by color. Someday that's going to be some sort of a mixed media collage mosaic-y piece. This screen, which we'll see from the other side, a little 12-inch NEC monitor, which goes over to my laptop over there. It's great for monitoring comments during live shows, as well as just like watching movies and TV shows while I'm painting. This corner on the side, we've got oil paints. These are usually have the lid on, but they don't right now. Some Gamblin, Utrecht, Williamsburg oils, some water mixable ones here I got from a late friend of mine, as well as more recently the paints that I've actually made myself, although this one's probably somewhat dried by now because it's not real sealed. Other side of the back corner, lids, other little containers, glass jars are back in here. Some diluted flow release for acrylics. A couple of pieces of alabaster stone, my carving knives, some extended set golden opens I got from a friend of mine. My liner brushes are over here, some stones for future projects, cutting scraper knives for scraping palettes off. Then we have big brushes, mostly for the acrylics. We have ink feathers and ink tools, and then we have watercolors, brushes, and some ink tools. Working our way over, paint markers, which used to be over there somewhere. I've actually moved over here recently, as well as some extended acrylic paint colors, things I don't use often, also because these three were a gift, so they're sort of supplement to my current set. The right-hand side of this is usually the palette spot, so my palettes sit over here while I'm working. I have some additional colors over here like white, black, yellow, my portable brush cleaner, which needs refilled, and then sort of short brushes and knives, and then big tall brushes are there in a spray bottle, and my water bucket always kind of sit right in that corner. Front and center, of course, is anything I'm currently working on. So I've got a 12 by 12 piece I've been meaning to get back to for the past 3 weeks that I haven't really had the time to do, as well as a mixed media watercolor piece that I'm working on here as well. Then sort of palettes I previously used or previous painting sessions often kind of accumulate over here, as well as sometimes on the floor over there, but we'll get to that in a bit. And then this corner is then just other random stuff, sketchbooks that of things I'm working on or planning to work on, or video outlines I'm planning to do. Kleenexes, paper towels, and my bottle projects tend to sit over here as well, as they're getting used. The table itself, my dad and I built out of some plywood and 2x4s, specifically for this studio. All total price in told, probably in the range of about $75, which is pretty good for a table this size. Beneath the table, I have a lot of different things, primarily being my Liquitex Spray paint. I get the Liquitex spray paint in particular because I can use it in the studio. I don't have to worry about ventilating anything, but I have been meaning to try out some like Montana and some Iron Lac paints when I get the chance. Behind those are a whole collection of empty liquor bottles. Not because I am that big of a drunk, but maybe I am. But all of these are future bottle projects, things I want to paint. Most of them for just, I love things with embossed lettering because that shows up really nicely when you start painting it, as well as just interesting shapes and things like that. But yeah, all future projects. Every time I get a bottle that looks interesting, I'm like, yeah, you know what, I'm keeping that one. I'm going to paint that one someday. And that's mostly it. We've got some fixatives and some sealer coats and things like that. All that lives back in here, extra caps. My rags, whole box of rags, which are mostly just old shirts and pants. Below that we have sort of what I call the scroll storage. So paintings that I don't want to completely get rid of, but things that I need the stretcher bar for a different piece, so I'll unstretch it, roll it up, and stick it all down under here. These are actually completely full, or at least mostly completely full, pads of paper and newsprint and things like that from previous projects. Other things I don't really want to get rid of. Around this side table, general storage, I've got some plastic bags and things for covering pallets, as well as just other random things and easier access to those bottles mostly, and water vessels and things like that. Now the wall behind me is the mural wall. Completed that in 2017. Still looks really awesome, and who knows, maybe in 5 years I'll paint something new over it, but for the time being it's still very much really a spectacle piece. Every time I have someone new by the studio, it's always like, wow, and I'm like, yeah, right? Just walk right into the world. That's kind of the point. On the floor over here is sort of my current-ish projects, usually. So anything I need to work on or need to get to or anything like that. Most of them right now are all relatively small slate and wood pieces. My mixing plate and muller for making paint live over here just because I don't have a place for them yet. There's a few things in the studio that I've had forever and actually don't have spots for. Along this wall here as well, I have a projector and a box of like picture wire, hanging tools, all that stuff's in there. At least the stuff that wasn't mine originally. This shelf, I've got a big shelf here. This came out of an old restaurant. My parents brought it the one day. And I've got down here a toolbox. This is a paper box full of little pieces of tissue paper that are really good to draw on. And in the far corner is my tripod, sort of tripod. It's an easel, tripod easel that lives sort of in the corner. When I'm not, it shows. Bottom shelf paper cutter. Pretty sure that box back there is full of bubble wrap. I'm not sure. It's been a while since I've looked. Next shelf up is a gesso shelf. I've got some extended wire, air freshener, and mineral spirits are here as well. And everything back there is actually old things. Basically the video demos and tutorials that I've done over the years. Just kind of when I'm done, kind of just end up getting thrown back there. Next shelf up is what I call hardware shelf. So staples, staple gun, glue gun, manual drill, pliers, the tape corner, and then it's like picture wire, hanging wire, and that whole box there is sandpaper. Next shelf up is just general storage. It's part of the you don't have a space for it yet stuff, including a vintage 7-Up crate for deliveries. I don't know what to do with it. I've had it for years. It doesn't really have a spot or a use, but that's where it lives. Next shelf up, my friend's old paint box, which actually just recently went onto this shelf because it was just kind of hanging out on the floor here with everything else. This is my print box when I go to shows, packed pretty much full with prints and small artworks. And then a mail scale, Christmas present from last year, wildly useful. Now, this wall is brand new-ish. Because this is now my idea board. I finally got around to getting these corkboard tiles and sticking them to the wall. So now I have a spot for ideas both long-term and short-term. The majority of the stuff on this wall, actually, I don't think I've touched in the better part of 15 years. Some of them, like the photographs, for example, both the ones in the center of the lighthouses and a couple of where is it? Where's my finger? There's those couple. But yeah, there's a lot here that is just, anytime I need to come up with something or need to go back to an idea, that's usually where this ends up going. And all these things used to be kind of just scattered about on the hutch and around the room. So now that I have a central place for them, that's really, really nice. And then, you know, trash can. Some of that stuff was also on the door previously. The door now is just sort of my color maps. I'm knocking stuff over. So color charts, color maps, and things like that. And testers for when I need an individual color to see how it mixes. Big dominant sign here. That sign's changed locations a lot in the past couple of years, but now that I, one, have built the corkboard wall and freed up a lot of space, and two, know that duct tape sticks to the wood way better than it does to the bricks, and also it's too thick to get pinned, that's where it's going to live, and it's going to be a lot more dominant in videos because it's a great message and sentiment. I had a lot of that corkboard stuff left over because I originally intended to do more of that wall with it. So I put some of it here, and put mostly here just color maps, color wheels again, references for me there. Below that we have pencil box I built for my friend's old pencils, whole mess of his old erasers, extra colored pencils and stuff. This was more of his old stuff. This is an article that I was actually featured in regarding a artist choice exhibition that I was in a couple of years ago. My featured painting down there. Neat to have press, especially printed press. So I framed it and put it in the studio. This is just other random junk. My oil pigment sticks live here, and the water mix oils are there. This countertop, with the exception of my pencil sharpeners, just whatever I feel like putting on it. It's basically at least this corner of the countertop. Below that, we've got, well, this whole unit is the closest I could probably come to flat files, because I always wanted to have flat files, but they're ridiculously expensive. And this whole unit I basically just stole from my parents when I moved, because I had most of my stuff in it already in the old studio, so I just took it. I didn't take it, I was like, I'm taking this, basically. This drawer, very important, because it's literally all of my drawing stuff. Pastels, inks, colored pencils, rulers are in here, measuring tools. Things I don't use as often are in the back. Inkstone's kind of middle back, because that's a very project-specific thing. Entire packs of pencils, because usually I'm just grabbing the ones up top. Charcoal, baking chocolate from that one project, oil pastels, and then bottled inks, which are probably the most used out of anything in here. Below that, we've got sort of mixed media, clay, magazines, really foam, like 3D stuff, things I don't need more than maybe once or twice a year. I've got, you know, mesh wiring, old dried tempera from when I was like 8, sculptures I never finished, things like that. Sculpey, just, yeah, a whole lot of stuff I basically never need. Since we're already kind of hanging out low, actually it just occurred to me this is still here. So this is a map of the United States I printed out, and there's a couple of little red dots around it, and those are, all the red dots are places that I have artwork. And now that I have the bulletin board, I actually probably going to print a new one of these and put pins in that map, because that's something I saw some other artists do a long time ago, and I was like, you know what, that's really cool, and I gotta do that for my own stuff, because every now and then I'll sell something and I'll be like, oh yeah, I gotta put something on this map. And now I realize I have like at least 2 more things I can put on that map now. I think 2 more cities in Texas, actually. So next drawer down, this used to be my storage for painting clothes, which now I actually don't have a place, but this is all cardboard scraps, foam board, things like that. Anytime I just needed something real quick. Above that, we've got what I call specialty papers. So tracing paper, pastel paper, acetate, glossy photo paper, things I don't need super often. There's illustration board buried underneath all of this stuff. That's all stuff I use for, again, these are like maybe no more than 3 to 4 times a year, tops. But above that is the more accessible stuff: watercolor paper, tan sketchbooks, black drawing paper here and here. Actually, these are the old Moki pen pads, but they're really just black drawing paper. Regular drawing and sketch papers, smaller thing in newsprint, a big roll of sort of tracing paper-esque paper. Pretty crazy stuff like that. There's a spoon here from my breakfast. If I have my orange juice in the morning, that all sits here. This is my pencil box. Let's call it the Salmon Box, by this artist Joe Wilson. Salmon Legend is the name of the piece, which I've, over the years, pretty much ruined from all the other paint that's been on it. Pretty sure he's just one of the small working Native American artists in varying places out in the American Southwest, because I think my parents or something that gave this to me. Actually, no, it was a gift box. There was like food in this initially. That's what it was. But yeah, so really interesting sort of classic Southwestern native design on it. The box itself, I have charcoal on one side and graphite on the other mostly. There's some white charcoal and some colored pencils and other blending stumps and erasers in the center. The other side is sort of my restock for pens, as well as my X-Acto knife, which is often very important. Now, I have a lot more pens, obviously, than that, since those are just like refill sketchbook pens or extra ones. These are sort of all of my liner pens that I'll, go to for different projects, and then sort of bigger liner pens and Sharpies and bigger pens are hanging out in the back. Behind that stuff, we've got all my old sketchbooks, and with the exception of this one. Wait, that one? No, that's not that one. This one and one other one that I've already forgotten. All of them are filled cover to cover, and then my new ones sit up here, with the exception of this one because it's too small to fit in there. But yeah, new sketchbooks always end up over there. Let's see, what else do we have here? So computer sits on the side, laptop, had it for years. It's actually, wow, that's really hot. My hard drive's been running really hot in this thing. I probably need a new one sometime before it dies. Scissors, other pencils, a lot of things I don't use very often live kind of in that corner, as well as some extra just cups and things I don't have a place for. The hutch itself, you guys see this in a lot of the videos, so it's very, very simple here. Gouache and acrylic gouache, regular acrylics, open acrylics, MSA acrylics, acrylic inks, and the high flows. Acrylic mediums, as well as some other mediums. I have oil mediums, watercolor mediums sitting up here, some Mod Podge. And then it's the watercolor shelf in the upper left, and then a couple of watercolor mediums in the back. Shelf above that is basically like knickknacks and a clock. Pretty much it. Some old projects, some new projects, some things that I don't want to talk about right now. So, pushing over a little further, we've got that my niece made when she was like 3. So I'm like, I'm gonna put that in the studio. That'd be fun. My sister-in-law referred to it as melted snowman. So it's one of her early pieces, I guess. I have a couple of flags. That one's on the floor, but of Holland, because my grandparents went on a cruise one time and became friends with these people from Holland. So we have a bunch of stuff from them from over the years. And most of these things, since I have a brother, I have 2 of, because he got one and then didn't want it at some point. So I accumulate things like that. Bigger cardboard storage hangs out over here. Usually when I need to replace the painting mats on my table. This is the stuff I tend to cut down and work with. Old slide projector that came from my late friend as well. The floor down here is all sort of in-progress projects, so similar to the ones on the floor over there, but those are the ones that are not currently being worked on. These are the ones that are sort of currently being worked on, and there's a lot of them right now. I need to get back to actually working on some of this stuff, a lot of these watercolor in between projects and things. This is extra stuff for the camera that I'm currently using, and then the lower shelf we've got additional storage of stuff I don't need, at least not right now. Camera equipment here, and this is sort of the prop shelf. I bought this thing to house all my old film props and everything like that. Fake blood, corn syrup in the corner. That's actually probably needs thrown away. That's like at least 10 years old. Canvas storage, canvas and big paper basically. So my Arches watercolor paper lives in here when I haven't cut it down yet. Both pre-stretched and stretcher bars, some of them bigger than others for projects I'm never gonna know what I want to do with them yet. Rolls of paper, construction paper, drawing paper. This actually usually has a whole bunch of canvas on it, but I'm down to just these couple of pre-cut, well, not pre-cut, but I cut them down folds to what kind of canvases they'll fit, but since I do need to get new canvas soon. More cork boards, because again, I bought way more cork board stuff than I need to. References to things I need, so drawing paper chart reference from Canson. This is actually in the back of like almost all of their paper sets, or paper board sets, sketchbooks and things like that. So really useful bit of information, just notes to myself on things to buy or things I might need to restock. I actually realized I don't have my specific canvas preference on here, so I got to figure out which set of canvas I use, or which particular weave and brand. And this at some point, well, this is the list of Williamsburg oil colors that's folded up in that little set. I decided to display it just because I have a tendency to want to look at it more than I want to unfold it. So, and actually at this point now, I'm probably going to put that printout map here with the extra pins. The upper shelf of this shelf, which I actually built myself, it's really crooked and wobbly, but you can't tell because I propped it up against the wall and put bricks to hold it in. Art books and like how to draw kind of books. So, you know, art books for movies and games, primarily in the far corner. This is actually a bunch of my old black and white photographs that back when I had access to a dark room I could utilize. And then sort of bigger drawing books, history of art, art supply catalogs, and project books. My Copic markers I think are upstairs right now, but here's the refills and some things I've been doing with them. I just used the 4 Copic wides, I don't go crazy with that. This little corner here is all my friend's old brushes. He was primarily an oil painter, so I keep those brushes separate. And there's also a lamp here to help me see when I'm digging through those. Just to kind of give myself an idea of like, okay, well I need oil. I'm using oil, say, let's make sure I use the oil brushes and don't damage my acrylic ones with oils. So I think that is pretty much it. I've got a lot of stuff. Oh yeah, here's some more stuff I missed. Fabric, belts, old fabric, old tablecloths, pallets. Pallets live down here too, all in this corner of that side of the studio table. So yeah, I've got quite a lot of stuff, and the studio is big, it's varied, and there might seem a little crazy to some people, but there is actually a method to my madness. Although, yeah, some things don't necessarily have a spot right now, but there is something unique about that. There is something important about having a space that you curate and put in such ways that make sense for you. They may not necessarily make sense for everybody, but they certainly might make sense for you as an artist. So this studio, again, this is a lot of stuff, but I've been building this stuff pretty much since I was a kid. I didn't start with all of these paints or all of these color maps. They're all just little projects that I accumulate after a while. And if you have the space to fill them, it's probably a good idea to get yourself some way to organize things. So cubbyhole hutches, tables, drawers, shelves, corkboard stuff. It's important to organize your stuff, at least to some degree, so it's not a complete mess. Although, looking around my studio, I definitely should be cleaning up sometime soon. So, I know this is kind of a long video, but I get really excited for doing projects like this and just going around and showing off the stuff that I've got. If I missed anything, you saw something that I didn't talk about, let me know in comments below. And I've been smiling so much, my face hurts. Thanks guys for watching. Like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're not already. And this has been Cinder Studios, reminding you to keep on creating, and I'll see you guys next time. This was actually a reshoot. I recorded this like 2 nights ago, but I talked too much and missed like six different things in the studio. I'm gonna leave. Oh, I didn't even talk about the painting storage in the closet too. But I've talked about that before, so I'm not talking about that again today.